All right, so so we completed the previous example and the activity, and we saw what's the biggest issue with that? That you have to write your HTML in your code. Okay, um, and you can see how painful it is, and a lot of you can easily make a lot of mistakes with it, right? So it's not very durable, not very applicable, so we need something else. Okay, so this is where the concept of template engines come in. Okay, it's called template engines. The concept is the same as your template literals. Template engines. Anyone here does not understand the template literals? Okay, everybody understands that. Again, what am I referring to? If you remember, if you see my strings over there on the screen, these are template literals. What do? They create a template which is between the backticks. Okay, and within the templates they have some placeholders like this. These are placeholders, or we call expressions. Okay, what happens when this code is run? It looks for this and replaces it with some values, right? This is what template literals do. Template engines do the exact same thing. The only thing they do it with is with HTML files. Okay, so you're going to create an HTML file. You're going to have similar syntax, not exactly dollar parentheses. The syntax is different, but the concept is still the same. You're going to have some placeholders in your index.html or any HTML file, which is going to be replaced by some values. That's what template engines do. Okay, and why are they required? Again, the same reason, so that you don't have to do all of this, right? There's no other way. If I want to send a web page back to my user, back to my browser, which has some data in it, right, which is going to change, right? Now if I go ahead and add another row, I should see another school over here, right? And you cannot go back and keep hard coding the same thing over and over again. So this way it is going to be automatically updated in your HTML. Okay, so that's why we need template engines. Now the template engine that we are going to look at this week is called handlebars. Okay, it's called handlebars. Now there are, why is it called handlebars? It's called handlebars because of these parentheses over here, these curly braces, right? These curly braces, people sometimes call them handlebars or handlebar brackets. So this is why it's called handlebars. Okay. Now this is not the only templating engine. There are a few more. One of them is called a mustache. Like, why is it called that? Because if you change the orientation of this, it kind of becomes a. So that's engineers for you. They come up with these weird names. Okay. So again, there are a lot more template engines. Um, to be honest, once you graduate, am I going to be using handlebars in my company? Probably not. I have never seen anybody using handlebars, right? But why is it required? Why is it important to understand? Because the popular frameworks are based on the same concept. AngularJS, Vue, React, all of them are using template engines that they have created that are built in, but the concept is still the same. Okay, so if you understand how to use a template engine such as handlebars, once we get to React, it'll be easier to understand what React is doing. right? Because React does the same thing. They have HTML, they have templates, and then you put in some data dynamically into those HTML. Okay, how do they do it? They do it through template engines. They have created their own template engines. The only difference would be syntax. Okay, but usually with template engines, you will see some use of these curly braces or these handlebars somewhere in some fashion. Okay, for example, if you even see the string literals over here, they're using this curly braces. It's kind of like a I wouldn't say a standard, but people have gotten used to it. So anybody who creates a new template engine, they try to stick with kind of like a similar fashion. They somehow use handlebars or the curly braces somewhere. Okay, so we will take a look at handlebars. Um, they use curly braces as well, except without the dollar sign. And I'll go through it and show what it does. Okay, but before we proceed, we look at the code. Any questions? Do you understand the concept of template engines? You guys understand there are more template engines. AngularJS, Vue, React, they all have template engines built into it. So you don't have to worry about importing anything extras. They do it on their own. Okay, but the concept is still the same. Okay, so we need to learn this in isolation so that we understand, okay, what is actually going on once we get to React and how do we create those web pages. Okay, all right, questions? Do you understand template engines concept-wise? Okay, now, to be honest, handlebars get a lot of hate from students. People get confused and they're like, oh my God, if you ask somebody from the previous cohort what's the most hated topic, they would say handlebars. I can see Ethan like nodding over there, right? It's why? Yeah, I don't know too much. I also don't get it why. Maybe because I have practiced more and I understand what's going on, but it takes a while to understand. But what people don't realize is they have to go through this, but when they get to React, people actually understand well and they don't even know. They're like, oh yeah, it makes sense to me. Well, it makes sense to you because we actually went through the whole thing. So that's why it kind of helps you understand better. Okay? All right, so let's get back to handlebars. So this is, we're going to create an app. For today, for this activity, I'm not going to use database. And the next on Tuesday, we don't have much time. So I'm going to create a handlebars app, okay? And show you how do you pass data between it. All right, I'm not going to connect it to database yet, but eventually on Tuesday, we will create an app with handlebars, express, and our database as well. Okay, now, there's a conveniently nice package on your npm. It's called express handlebars. That's what we are going to use. Okay, I love their description. If you want to ask what is this, this is in one line: a handlebars view engine for Express which does not suck. That's the definition of this package, right? Yeah, you might think otherwise, but this is what we are going to be using. Okay, now when you talk about you might have heard this when you talk about React.js or Angular or Vue or handlebars, you guys must have heard the word opinionated, that these are opinionated frameworks. Anybody heard that? Right? Oh, because yeah. So the word opinionated means well, in English language it means that somebody who is like who has opinion, they kind of stick to it. These frameworks are very opinionated in the sense that they come up with this framework and you have to use it the way they're telling you. So they are saying basically, you do it like this or take the highway like this. It is our way or the highway. That's what they're saying. React is like this, Angular is like this, Vue is like this. Okay, and why are we saying they're opinionated? Because remember where they're coming from. They're coming from JavaScript. JavaScript is like Wild West out there. They're like, oh yeah, do anything you want, it's okay, right? But these frameworks have some restrictions, and that's why they're called opinionated frameworks. They tell you, okay, you can use it, but you have to exactly use it this way. If you don't, it's not going to work. Okay, it's an irony because as engineers we are very opinionated. We have some set of rules and we never, like for me, I don't write comments in my code. I refuse to write any comments, and I say the reason I give is that okay, my code should be written in such a way, in such readable way that everybody should be able to understand. If they don't understand, this means I'm writing my code differently. I need to make it more easy. So that's why I don't include comments in my code. Okay, but that's just my opinion. But you will see, it depends on the company. Some people are really into comments. You have to comment every single line, every single function, but that's how it is. Okay. All right, so that's what opinionated framework means. Now, handlebars is also a opinionated framework. This means that they have outlined a certain way you have to use this. So much so that, wrong zooming. So much so that you need to have this kind of folder structure. Okay, if you don't have this layout, express handlebar is not going to work. That's how opinionated it is. Okay, and the reason is because to you the code wouldn't look, you'd be like, oh, that's all I have to do to use this. Yes, but what is happening in the background is your express handlebar is actually looking for this and kind of making some assumptions, and that's how it's able to render those things. Okay, so if you see on the basic structure, they have outlined, this is your server.js. You can call anything it want, that's okay. Then you should have a views folder. Okay, within your views folder there should be a layouts folder which should have main.handlebars. Okay, we'll go through it and I'll create it with you, but remember this is the directory structure you have to come up if you are using express handlebars. Okay, it should be a views folder and all your handlebar files are going to be here. Okay, we'll go through it and you will see, but my point is these are very opinionated frameworks and we need to understand before we can use them. Okay, same with React. React is also very opinionated. You have to have this kind of these functions and this and that, then only it works. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Okay, any questions? Good, concept good? All right, so if you look at the Express documentation, they have built-in support for these template engines. And as I said, there are, let me type this out. There are different template engines. One of them, the one that we are going to be looking at is called handlebars. All right. So let's look at the installation. Same thing. You need to install this package. I think it's called Express-handlebars. All right. So we'll be using Express and Express handlebars. All right, so let's create the views first. Should I do that? Okay, let's start with what they are saying with this part. Okay, so we're going to have the same folder structure that they are recommending. Well, kind of forcing. So it has to be a view folder. Within the view folder, you're going to have a layout. Layout is a layout or layouts? Views, layouts. Okay, so let's rename this to layouts and then views. Okay, within my views there should be main.handlebars. Okay, let's create a file main.handlebars, and you will see Visual Studio has a built-in support, and they kind of bring up this mustache ID, mustache symbol, so they know what handlebars actually mean. Okay, all right. So your .handlebar file is going to be just like your HTML file, right? The exact same code that you write in your HTML, you're going to write the same code over here. Okay, don't worry about the extension. The extension should be this, but the code inside it is going to be HTML, and you will see Visual Studio kind of recognizes it. Okay, because the only code that goes in your handlebars is HTML. Okay, so you should be able to write your HTML. Let's call it, the example is called lunches, so let's call it lunches. Okay, so the first thing in your main handlebars, that's your main file, that's your starting point when you're using handlebars. Okay, by default it is called main. Okay, for now let's stick to the name. They're saying it main, we'll call it main as well. All right, and I'll show you where you can make that change, but most of the time don't have to change the name. Okay, but remember your main file is the one that starts up first. Okay, so if you are including your bootstrap, your jQuery, and all that stuff, you will include it in your main.handlebars over here. Okay? All right. Now, in your body, you will see kind of like a template literal syntax, but a little bit different. You will see three curly braces and the word body. Okay? This syntax is not HTML, right? I hope everybody recognizes it. This is not HTML. HTML doesn't understand what's going on, right? This is handlebars, all right? So what happens is when your HTML is rendering, it comes across these things and kind of ignores it, and it says, oh, I don't know what to do with it. Maybe there's a file or there's a package that knows what to do with it. Okay, later on they find out it's handlebars, and handlebars says, oh yeah, I know what to do with it, and I'll handle it for you. Okay, but remember, this is not HTML. This is, you are telling handlebars to handle something. All right. So what does the three curly braces mean? Anything that is between these curly braces, three curly braces. Okay, the three ones. Everything beneath inside this would be rendered as HTML. Okay, three curly braces mean anything which is inside it would be rendered as HTML. Okay. And then we also have two curly braces, and we'll take a look at what two curly braces will do, because we'll be using the two a lot. Okay. So what you are saying is, in your main file, in your body tag, you are saying that this, whatever comes over here, is going to be rendered as an HTML. Now, what is this keyword body? This is from handlebars. You have to name it body. You cannot name anything else. It's not going to work. Okay. What happens with this body tag? Body variable. What comes over here? Anything that you mention in your views that is supposed to be rendered within this. Okay, what do I mean? This is my main page, but I'm going to have more pages, right? This is my main page. I can have a contacts. I can have a few more web pages. Now, where do those web pages go? Inside your view folder, outside your layouts. Okay. For example, I'm going to create another handlebars, and let's call it lunch. Handlebars. Okay, what did I do wrong? I think I created the folder. Should be a file. Lunch.handlebars. What am I doing? What? Oh, that's what it is. Thank you. I was like, again? I was like, handlebars. Okay. Now remember, all your pages other than your main are outside the layouts, are inside the views folder. Okay, and these are your web pages, such as your portfolio, contact, and those kind of pages. All right, those are secondary pages that are going to navigate from here to here. Okay, now this body tag, this thing, body, the variable, this is going to be replaced with these views eventually. Okay, and we have to tell what is it going to be replaced with, but this tag over here, this variable, is going to be replaced with your lunch.handlebars, and it's going to treat everything, all the code inside it, as HTML. That's why you will see an HTML over here. Okay, and when would I see that HTML? Right click on your browser, inspect, you will see this page with body tag and some HTML over here, right? But you didn't actually write HTML, but eventually when it gets rendered, you will see HTML over here. Okay, where is that HTML coming from? These are coming from your pages that are inside your views. For example, this one. Okay, now these pages that are not part of the main, you don't have to do this thing, right? These are not separate pages. They are basically kind of like components or parts which belong over here. For example, if I have a page, if I have this lunch that I ate, this thing, okay? So this portion is going inside a different file, for example, this one, okay? And this is going to be rendered within this tab. That's what's happening, okay? So these other files which are part of the view, you don't have to start with a doc and the whole thing. You're going to only specify the HTML that you want to be replaced over here. Okay, so these are, you can say these are now components. So you have a big page, okay, HTML page. You have broken it down into multiple portions. Okay, let's suppose you have a portfolio page. So this is your web page. You have a picture, summary, some description. You are basically breaking this down into different components. Okay. This is how handlebars do it. It's just not handlebars. React is totally based on that. They want you to break everything down. You shouldn't be having like a big HTML file with everything in it. It should be broken down into components. And those components are going to be built elsewhere, such as lunch.handlebars and a few more. And they are eventually, when your code runs, when your browser renders the HTML, they're going to come over here and place themselves one by one. Okay? Right now we just have one component, so we'll see just one coming over here. Let me back here. Okay? All right, any questions before I show you the server side code? Right now we just have set it up, it wouldn't run because we need to create our server and then we need to specify what template engine I'm using and what data do I need to pass in over here. Go back here. Now I mentioned 3 curly braces. If you are using two variables are used, 2 curly braces are used to render or get the value of the variable that is passed in. Okay, 2 curly braces are used if you want this to be replaced with some value, like an object, like an array, like a string, like a number, anything. Okay, so that's where the 2 ones are used. You replace anything with 3 is going to be rendered and it's going to understand it in HTML. 2 are your variables. Okay, so if I'm saying 2 curly braces and lunch, this means there I'm going to define the variable lunch somewhere. I don't know where, we'll say where, but this is going to be replaced with a value for this variable lunch, right? That's what two curly braces will do. Okay, so eventually let's suppose I want this to be replaced on my web page. Okay, so I'm putting what I had for lunch, right? Now this is kind of hard coded. This data is going to come from somewhere. So what I'm saying is I'm going to send a variable called lunch, all right? And this variable will have that value, all right? So what happens now, I can keep changing the value for lunch, but I don't have to change anything over here. It's going to be replaced with whatever value for that variable I pass in. Okay, so it could be a burrito right now, a taco, whatever, a sandwich, anything that you pass in over here, right? So we'll see where this variable we have to define in a different file, but that's what the concept is. Okay, any questions? Okay, so the next step, let's see how do we tell Express to use handlebars and how do we pass in this variable called lunch over here. So let's go ahead and quickly create our server.js. Server.js. Const express is equal to require express. Okay. Const. Let's import our handlebars. So express handlebars call require, and it was called express handlebars. Okay, let's go ahead and create our port number and then run our server. port is equal to process dot env dot port, or let's run it on 3000. Okay. Let's create our app express. Okay. And the last thing would be this should be listening. So app dot listen, port number, and function console log server running on HTTP localhost, and let's use our template literals. Okay, so this is my Express server. Let's see if this is running. Let's go ahead and install. This is handlebars. Handlebars. Okay. npm I express, and then npm I express handlebars. Okay, let's go ahead and run our server. Okay, so the server is running, everything is good. Okay, so now we are going to use handlebars. So remember those middleware functions where we use the static, where we use the URL encoded for a post thing. It's similar to that. We're going to say app dot function is called engine. Okay, and engine takes in two parameters. The first one, which engine you're trying to use, called handlebars. Okay, and then the object, the variable that you just created, this thing, the one that you just imported, exhps. Okay, same thing as, remember express is a function, same thing over here. So we are calling it the variable that you created, imported, and then parentheses for the function. Okay, this is how you tell express, and then you will set this engine. So over here you are initializing what engine you will be using, and using the set command you are telling express the first argument would be view space engine and handlebars. Okay, so these are the absolute two lines you need to tell Express that I'm going to be using a template. I'm going to be using a template engine, and which one I'm going to be using handlebars. Okay, so app.engine, engine name, and the variable that you just imported with the function, and then set the view engine to handlebars. Okay, again, as I said, there are different view engines, different template engines. The one that we are using is called handlebars. So that's how you set. So these two lines are absolutely necessary before you start writing any code. Okay, let's go back here and see if there's any error. Nope, still running. All right, good. We're going to keep copy pasting these lines, but that's what they're doing. You're setting, you're telling Express that I'm going to be using a engine, and that's what it's called. Okay, now this function, you will see an argument of type object, and you will see this property inside it. Okay, what is it saying? This is the engine that I'm using, handlebars. The starting file for this one is called main, and this way it's going to go over here, look into your layouts and look for this file. If this file you are calling it index.handlebars, then you need to go back over here and change this to index. Okay, very important. This file should match the default layout. And if you keep it as main. Let's go back over here, put it as main. If the only way, if you're using the handlebars layout file called main, you can skip this whole thing. By default, it is always going to look for a file called main. Okay, so this parameter becomes redundant if your file is already called main, so you can totally skip it. It doesn't matter. Okay, the reason I keep it over here is in case you want to change this to maybe call it index.html versus main.handlebars or index.handlebars. So you can, this is the option. It's visible, you can go back and change it. But if you remove it and your file is main.handlebars, it's going to still work. Okay, just for visibility purposes, I'm going to keep it over here so that later on, if you guys feel like, okay, I want to change something, so this is the place where you're going to go and change it. Okay? All right, any questions? Yes. Yes. What is it? It has to be handlebars. Yes. Oh, these two things? Oh, well, these two statements are independent, but the keyword it is looking for is called handlebars. So Express is looking for some template engines, and if you say handle space bars or handle something, it wouldn't find it. So it's looking for you. But these two are independent of each other, but this is what Express has built in, and that's what it is looking for. Okay, so example, there's a different template engine, that's what you would mention over here. And this is how it is in Express. So they have built in looking for handlebars. Yeah, that could be anything. Yeah, that could be anything, right? I did it so that you guys can see Express handlebars. You can have the whole name called Express handlebars. Okay, and then you have to update this part over here. Okay, this and this should match. This part, oops, ooh, look at that, the code behind it. So this and this should match, right? The same way that this and this should match. Yeah, these you can name anything. Make sure you are passing the same one as this one. Everything else is the same. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and create a route. Let's say app.get, create a route called /lunch. So when I come to this, I'm going to send some HTML back. Two parameters, request and response. Okay. All right. So when you're using handlebars, right now we have seen response.send, we have seen response.send file, we have seen respond.json. Okay. Any other function I'm missing? Send file, JSON. Those are the all three I remember. Okay. So for handlebars, it's called for any. Well, I should take it. It's not for handlebars. It's for any template engine that you're using. You are going to say response.render. Okay. Response. We have seen response.send, response.send file, response.json. When you're using a template engine, use this function, response.render. Okay. Now render takes in two parameters. The first one is the page, the HTML page that you're trying to render. Okay, if I go back over here, what page am I trying to render? Lunch, not the main one. Main will be automatically handled. Why? Because of this line over here, it knows what to do. So it's always going to load the page over here. So you don't have to worry about your main page. Okay, so what page am I rendering when somebody comes to it? I'm rendering the lunch.handlebars. So the page is going to be called lunch, simple lunch. Okay, handlebars Express will handle the extensions, everything. As long as these are in the right location, it knows where to find it. Okay, inside your views, outside your layout. The second parameter is always, always, always going to be an object. Okay, remember, no array, no string, no number, it has to be an object. Okay, response or render, the first is going to be the page that you're trying to render. The second argument is going to be of type object, which is going to contain the data that you want to send to this web page, right? Any data that you want to send to lunch.handlebars, you put it over here, but the data type for this is going to be an object. Okay, so for example, if we go back to our lunch.handlebars, what am I expecting? I'm expecting a variable called lunch that is going to have some value. Okay, so if I come back over here, I can only pass an object. What is my property going to be called? It has to be lunch. Why? Because my page lunch is expecting a variable called lunch. So I'm going to say lunch, and then I can put anything. Okay, now what is going to happen? Once you call, when you run the express, let's see if there's any error. Oh, it did crash somewhere, but that's good. Okay, when somebody comes to this web page, is going to do response or render. Oh, lunch, well, this is all set, right? Oh, lunch, I'm going to go to look at the lunch page, and I'm going to take this page, put it in my main handlebars between these two tags, and then, oh, there's a variable, and these are two curly braces, so I need to process this variable. Where is this value coming from? It's over here. Okay, so let's go back to our web page and see lunch. So I am passing data without actually writing my HTML. I'm creating my HTML page somewhere else, and I'm passing this data over here. Okay, now remember, the data that you pass in has to be an object. For example, now this is an object, right? So I can pass any property I want. So I'll pass property called restaurant. Okay, so now what am I doing? I'm passing two variables over here. This will still work, right? Still good. But when I come back over here, I can also put in another H1, and this time I can say render restaurant. Okay, my restaurant shows up over here. So I can pass multiple properties within this. Okay, since this is an object, I can create an object on the top and pass it over here. Let's say const lunch is equal to my object, which has lunch, and then okay. I can do this, and then I can pass in this object lunch, right? This is the only requirement is that the parameter has to be of type object. So this is an object with two properties, and then I can pass it over here. This should still work. Okay, when will it start working? If I say okay, if I change this name, will this work? It will not. Again, why? You're passing in an object called lunch, okay, but these things, they are expecting, when you get an object, they are looking for the property within that object called lunch and restaurant. Okay, is there a property called lunch anymore? No, it's called lunch item. So now if I render my page, it's not going to work. It just disappears. Probably in your console you'll get an error that it doesn't know what's going on. Okay, so these things should match the names that you are sending over here. Okay. Now, another interesting, if you look at the HTML, what are you going to see? You're going to actually see just a regular HTML, right? You won't see handlebars or anything. You will see body tag, which is actually rendering these things. You see that? H1N. So your body, parentheses, everything has been replaced with HTML. Your browser has no idea what those things mean, okay? But handlebars and Express are handling that on their side. They are making that HTML just the way we did it in the previous activity. Remember, we did a string and everything. Behind the scenes, I'm pretty sure handlebars is kind of doing something similar. It's replacing everything with those nice tags and replacing with values and then sending it back. Okay? All right, questions? Yes. A function? Hmm. Um, right. So that's a good question. So, but the only thing is, the query part should be done before you call this HTML page because you are passing in data. So you should have already done the query, got the data, and then pass in that data. So that's why you would have to do it before you actually make that thing. Yes. No. No, it's a variable called lunch over here. This is it has to be the object. Okay. If it is confusing, I'll rename this to lunch item. But then if I go back over here, I need to make it lunch item. Okay. All right. Anything else? Yes. Oh, yeah, you can put CSS over here. Oh, the CSS. Well, yeah. For now, you can put your CSS on the top, or you can put it in your main handlebars. Like create a CSS file and just include it. Yeah, it's the same process. It doesn't. The CSS that one change. You got it? Yes. Oh yeah, it doesn't matter. It's up to you. Whatever you want to do it. You can do lunch item. Just treat it as a variable as you would do with your template string. So you can do um, lunch at and then yeah, you can totally do it. As, so your page is going to be something a bit different. Yeah, yeah, you can do it. You can flip it around. Just treat them as variables and do it like you would write your normal HTML. Yes. Inside where? No, this is for one thing. Yeah, if it is going to render, remember the two are for variables. It's going to render the if you put in comma something, it is literally going to look for a variable called lunch item comma restaurant. It's not going to work. Yeah. You can remove this and add a comma here, something like this. Okay, it renders only one at a time. All right. Any other questions? Huh? Oh, this is a stand over here, uh, on the Gilbert Road. It's called Topo. Yeah. I just had lunch over there. That's why I remember. Yeah. Hmm? Oh, really? Oh, I guess I should. Oh, thank you for letting me know now. Maybe it has a different meaning in Spanish. I don't know. All right. So, any questions? All right. Are there which one? Because it is a opinionated framework. That's the simple answer. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I read that.
Yeah.
It's
So
supposed to
you
be
can come up. Yeah. Huh? What is it?
Sorry, I thought I read that it's like relatively not that.
Yeah, it's not relatively. It's still, but it's not as bad as React and Angular. Well, again, remember this is a very small. It's a small portion compared to those big giants like React and Angular. So they have a lot more stuff. Handlebar does just that's all it does. But those frameworks, those libraries are huge. So that's why they are a lot more opinionated. Yeah, that's why. So that's a simple answer to be honest. Again, as I said, this is how they are expecting. So we kind of follow the same thing. Okay. Now, what if I have multiple items here? Let's suppose that instead of an object, this is just an object. Remember, you can only pass an object over here, right? What if I have to pass an array? What do I have to do then? I mean, it's not reasonable just to say, oh, it has to be an object. Now I can't do anything with it. What if I have to pass an array? What if I have to pass in string? Let's suppose I have an array of lunches, okay? And instead of this is now an array, okay? This has one item, second item. Let's add one more. Okay, same thing. Is it to go silent? I can't remember. Oh, I have it other way around, man. So what if I have this array? Add an index number. That's really good. So if I want to pass in the first one, what do I have to do? I would have to say lunches, but I can only pass an object, so I would have to say lunches and 0. Okay, why? Because I have 0 indexes and objects, and then if I render this, it shows me same thing, and then if I go back and change it to 1, you see this should change up to second one. Even though it's an array, but I can only pass an object. Okay, what if I don't want to pass an object? I want both of these over there. Do what? What? What was that? Okay. So I want to pass this whole array. I don't want one. I want both of these to go into my page over here, and I'm going to list all of them. That's what I want, just like my school. So what do I have to do? The restriction is it has to be an object. So what? How do I pass an array? Say it. Put it inside an object. Trick it, right? Make an object and put that array inside that object and pass it over here. So it has to be an object. Then you can create call lunches, and then pass in this. Let me make a different name so that you guys can see. Okay. I have the only it has to be an object, so you can wrap this around, wrap this array, put it inside an object, and when your lunch handlebar receives it, it's going to receive this variable. What is this? It's going to have the array lunches. Okay, just wrap it around an object and pass it to your variable over here. So this time it's going to lunches array. Let's see if it displays nicely. We'll have to loop through it, and I'll show you the loop. Okay. But you see, it's getting the whole array back. I mean, it doesn't look nice, and I'll show you how to fix that. But this is how you would pass an array. Okay. So, so anything that you need to pass in, it has to be just wrapped around an object. So if you're trying to pass an array, create a new property array or anything you want. pass that array in, and your handlebar page is going to receive that array. Okay. Now, how do I parse this? Um, your handlebars again. This is I'm going to show you with handlebars again. All libraries that have template engines like React and all that stuff, they all have some kind of looping mechanism. Okay. For handlebars, it's called each, hash each. So how do you loop through an array? Let's suppose I'm going to create a bunch of ULs. Okay, just like my schools, and within this I want to create a bunch of LIs that is going to have these lunches displayed. Okay, now in your handlebars, how do you loop through? Again, same, two curly braces, all right, and it's called each. Okay, it is called, if you want to loop through it, it's not called a for loop anything. In handlebars, it's called each, and then you mention the name of the array that you're trying to loop through. So I'm trying to loop through this. So I'm going to say, let's remove this for now. Okay, so I'm saying loop through my array called lunch R, and where is it coming from? It's coming from my over here. I'm sending that array called lunches array, loop through it. And then how do you end the loop? Same thing, just with a backslash, like HTML. Okay, so anything between all code over here is going to be looping through this array. That's how you loop through in handlebars. Okay, now what am I trying to do in this loop? I'm trying to create those LIs. Remember, in your previous activity, you were looping through and then putting some string and putting some data over here. It's the same thing. The only thing over here is this is part of handlebars, and it's going to create these LIs. And within my LIs, what do I have to show? It's looping through this array. This array has true properties, a lunch item restaurant. So you can say lunch item, okay, and then at, let's say, restaurant, okay, because this array has objects, and one of the objects for lunch item restaurant, so it's going to loop through this array and going to create these LIs with this tag over here. Okay, so now if you go back here, refresh, it shows a list. Same thing, remember the schools one? We had to do it with a string. We were looping through it. We were creating LIs on that loop. But now you can do it in your handlebars. Okay, but handlebars is not restricted to each, but that's what we will look at it today. They also have ifs also. Okay, if you look at the documentation, handlebars have if statements, loops, and few more things. But they are pretty, like, it's almost like a programming language. Okay, so this is how you will loop through some of the items. Or okay, again, remember, the only second argument can only be an object. If you're trying to pass something other than an object, wrap it around an object, pass that over here. For example, this array. Now if you want to loop through it, remember the magic schools I did, or the TV app that you guys did. Instead of doing it in your string, you can do it in your HTML using handlebars. This is how you would loop through them. Okay, any questions? So we started with handlebars, import handlebars, these two lines necessary. This tells your Express that I'm using handlebars. This is my main page. Okay, if you remove this, this will still work as long as your main page is called main. All right, now on your folder structure, you have to create a views folder. Should have a layouts is going to have your main handlebars. Okay, in your main handlebars, the only code is you can import CSS and all that stuff. This is all it has. Okay, now what gets filled with this depending on our server.js. Okay, for example, if I have another route called, let's say, lunches, which shows all lunches, let's suppose. Instead of one, I was making two different ones. So what do you have to do? You have to create a route, another route, get route, and this time say slash lunches function request response. Okay, and then what you would do, you would call the next one, the other web page. Instead of lunch, you would say lunches, and then whatever you're trying to pass to your lunches page. Could be, this is probably going to be the array over here. So this would be actually over here, and over here you can just pass in just one, I suppose. Okay, so this way you can have multiple pages. Okay, when your browser goes to this page, it shows you only one lunch, picks the first one from the array. Um, this page shows all of them. Okay, so it will go through past the array and then go have the code behind it, and that is going to have all the code from here over there. Okay, and over here you can just have the h1 with what was the lunch item, and at, okay, so now I have two web pages, right? Similarly, you can create as many pages as you want, and which page it is going to be rendered is based on this URL over here. Okay, when you come to localhost lunch, it's going to render this page. When it comes to this, it's going to load this one. So in my app, in my Magic Schools app, if I was going to slash just the root route, it should render all the schools. If I put in an ID, it renders just one. Okay, so we are kind of going back to our folder structure where we can create a HTML file, but this time we have to use handlebars. And the reason is handlebars allows us to dynamically put these values over here. Okay, questions? Okay, I'm going to keep this code over here so that you guys can do the same activity. This is going to be the last one. It's called 05 Ben and Jerry's. Very similar to this one. Just make sure you understand, either do that activity or at least have this code so that you know, understand, you are able to run handlebars. Okay, because on Tuesday we're going to carry on and we are going to be connecting a database to our handlebars and showing all this information from our database instead of having this. Okay, the activity is 05 Ben and Jerry's. Please make sure to complete this is still easy activities compared to what we are going to do or what we are continuing doing on. Okay, so Ben and Jerry's 05, they should take you to the end of the class. Please make sure you are at least you have your handlebars, everything set up. Uh, you are able to at least get something is render the HTML pages. Okay, and we will look how to connect to our database on Tuesday. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So work on 05. I'm going to keep this code over here so that you guys can use this as a reference. when you see that error, this means you haven't defined it, and it's not good. So it looks like this one already has an array called ice creams, and then you're going to create two routes, ice creams and ice cream, and then you pass in a name. It's going to render two different handlebar files, ice cream, and call it a different one. Let me go back to the one that I have. Okay, so two routes. One is going to be ice cream and then pass an ID. No.
Okay. What happens? Took off after.
Oh.
Oh. said it. He said a different name. I was like,
I guess he doesn't know her well. Oh, that's how you say. Okay. Oh, yeah.
He said some other name. No, it wasn't that. It was like, started with an S. He said Bonnie or stuff like that. Siobhan. Exactly. So you don't go by a different word.
It just, I find that it's, so in some other languages, traditional understanding was they can communicate so that people receive it The standard calculation should be but the process of being that has to be resolved. See that or the one that is part of that is the process or
Oh my gosh.
but the process of being you cannot make it more. God is has to be uppercase. Why? Because this is coming from out here. They have defined it uppercase. You can't change it. But with you want this is assigning a value. Alright, please make sure to go over these activities. Tuesday, we are going to add database to this part instead of the array over here. So it's going to spiral out of control pretty quickly. Alright, have a